What's up, guys? It's Coach Karina. It's that time again, another movement of the month. Now that we're toward the end of the year for November and December, when we're moving into our cooler months, it's a time for restoration and recovery for our bodies. And what we're going to do is use movements that are very familiar to you, that you see all the time in your yoga practice, in your warm-ups and your cool downs, and that are standard things during daily life. Our first one for November is going to be a standing forward bend, a toe touch. In the medical world, we call it multisegmental flexion. Basically, you're standing with your knees straight. Can you get your hands to your feet? Now, there's a lot of reasons why some of us might be limited in doing that. So when we stand, the legs together and the knees pretty straight, and we go down and attempt to touch the feet, there's a lot of things that are required for us to be able to do that. You have to have a certain amount of flexibility in the backside of your body. The hamstring, the glutes, the lower back muscles, the joints in the hips and the lower back have to be able to bend that much. But then there's also a requirement for stability. You have to shift your hips back a little bit and be able to control the movement of the trunk downward and back up again. So it's not necessarily just tightness in the hamstrings. Most of the time when people have a hard time with this movement, they can't reach their toes, it's the hamstrings that scream at them. And so that's what we tend to blame. Those poor hammies get blamed for everything. They may or may not be the reason why it's hard to get down there. What happens in many cases is the hamstrings are plenty long, but they're taut. They're not necessarily tight, but they're taut. They're on all the time. They're not getting a break. And so as the upper body starts to tip forward, again, everything on the back side of my body is capable of helping me control this movement. My glutes, my lower back muscles, my hamstrings too. As I bend forward and the brain says, I'm going to use one of my mentor's analogies here, but the brain says, okay guys, the upper body's going forward. Who's going to stop it? Who's controlling it? And the lower back's on vacation, not paying attention. The glute muscles are like, well, I've been kind of lazy for a long time. The hamstrings tend to do my work for me. And the hamstrings are like, fine, I'll do it. And then they pull really hard. They're hanging on for dear life in order to prevent your head from falling on the ground. So sometimes they feel tight. You feel a stretch and intensity in the muscle, and it may or may not be actually too short. So if you have a hard time reaching your feet, one way to test and see if it is true tightness or a postural stability issue or like a muscle coordination issue, if you sit down on the ground with your legs out in front of you like Dandasana, long sit position, still with the knees straight, and then you try to reach your feet, if you can get closer, and of course the postural stability requirement when you're sitting versus standing is different. So if you can get closer when you're sitting than you can when you're standing, then we maybe have some stability work to do. And I didn't say weakness or it's not a strength issue. It's a stability issue potentially where the muscles need to do a better job working together. Somebody please come out and help the hamstrings, right? The last way that you can check it is lying flat on your back. If you can lift a leg, one straight leg up in the air, and you can get kind of close to 90 degrees, that's what we consider to be normal. Of course, some people have the ability to really raise their leg way towards their chest, and that's great, but that's excessive flexibility. And that's not really what we're looking for. What we want is for normal in the medical world, what we consider to be normal, lie flat on your back, get your leg up to 80, 90 degrees. And if you can get there, then we consider that, well, then the hamstring's not too tight. The hamstring's just doing too many jobs. And that may be why it feels like it's limiting you in your toe touch. So multisegmental flexion, couple ways to do some self-assessment, kind of see where you're at. As we move along during November, we're going to add, of course, some ways to work on that. Hamstring stretching is one way to do it. But if you have a hard time touching your feet and you just spend time stretching the hamstrings, we might be missing the boat. We might have a couple other things that we could work on to make that a lot better. So we're going to include some flexibility stuff and some stability stuff to get that toe touch working awesome for you. Happy November!